Hello and welcome to another edition of DC808 on the Wire. As always, I'm Chad Blair here in our Honolulu offices. And joining me today is Kery Murakami, our DC correspondent. Hello, Kery.
Aloha, Chad. How are you over there?
I'm doing good. Tell us, where exactly are you right now?
I'm sitting right here in the Senate Press Gallery in the Capitol building.
You know, I love the hat, by the way, very sharp.
Thanks a lot, Chad.
Hey, let's get right to it. One of the big things that happened last week in terms of the Hawaii delegation, Tulsi Gabbard and Colleen Hanabusa split their votes on a defense appropriation. What can you tell us about that?
It was kind of unusual because Gabbard voted against the Democratic leadership, and as you know, Chad, it's like traditionally the Hawaii delegation tends to vote together. And in this case, Gabbard voted with the House Republicans on a bill to keep the government running and authorize the budget for the rest of the fiscal year. The problem that the Democratic leaders like Nancy Pelosi had was that it keeps the sequestration cuts in effect for everything else, education, healthcare, social services.
I don't want to read too much into this, but part of me wonders if Congresswoman Gabbard decides to run for the Senate next year, and if Colleen Hanabusa decides to run, and of course it'd be running against Brian Schatz, whether a vote like this might be remembered and brought up during the campaign. Hey, you voted with the Republicans, that sort of thing. Am I overreaching here?
I'm sure it will come up, because the reality is these are all pretty progressive Democrats, and there's not going to be a whole lot of differences, probably between all the candidates. So I'm sure any difference will be mentioned during the campaign. I mean, it's also interesting because one of the storylines for the delegation is what happens without Senator Inouye, and the fact that two members split their votes on a pretty important bill. It sort of makes you wonder how together they are, and whether this would have happened under Senator Inouye.
Speaking of Senator Inouye, it was common for the delegation to really follow his lead when he was in office. The four of them would meet along with Senator Akaka. Now there's a new delegation, and as you reported, they met for the first time since they've been sworn into office. It looked like they were all getting along, but do you have any insight? Do you feel that the delegation is working closely together?
They wouldn't really talk about it. What they said was they got together and they talked about, they sort of updated each other on what they're all working on. It struck me as slightly unusual that it came so late. I mean, they've been here for a few weeks now, and they're saying it's scheduling conflicts. And Representative Gabbard was in the National Guard for a couple of weeks, and this is the first time they can all sit down together. But again, you sort of wonder, if Senator Inouye was around, if he says, "Hey, let's meet, at 9 o'clock on Monday," if people would find a way to get there.
Let's talk briefly about sequestration and the budget. The March 5th deadline now long past. Here at home, we're starting to see cutbacks on visitation to national parks. The Arizona Memorial is cutting routes. You've reported on cuts to the Volcanoes Park. There in D.C., I believe the White House has cut back on their tours. Are you starting to feel the effects? Is it really starting to become visible, this cutting back on hours and so forth, furloughs and whatnot?
It hasn't so far, and the reality is no one's actually going to be furloughed until the end of April because of the requirements. But there's signs. I mean, the Department of Defense announced today that they're suspending their tuition assistance program for the Army. It's definitely the hot topic here in D.C. Sure looks like sequestration is here to stay for a while.
Well, Kery, we could talk forever. I have a feeling about politics and government in Washington and Hawaii. It's a pleasure working with you, and we look forward to working with you very soon on another installment of DC808. Welcome to Civil Beat.
Thanks a lot, Chad.
Absolutely. And for DC808 on the Wire, I'm Chad Blair in Honolulu. Take care.